We're going to be on the Triangle Talk Show. If there's something you want to say and you don't want it to be on, just tell Gary and he'll stop. And we're going to all mute ourselves so we can sing along with Randa. Get energized.
Okay, and I'm thinking about waking up this morning in Georgia. Columbus, Georgia, Macon, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on justice. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on justice. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on justice. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on justice. I'm walking and talking with my mind just stayed on justice. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on justice. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Yes, yes, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind just stayed on freedom. I did. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, everybody say hallelujah.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Welcome to Tuesdays with Tillis, week number 206. We are a community of nonviolent resistance. Today, we're coming together on a really pivotal week for our democracy. And we're especially thinking about the election today in Georgia and sending our love and our energy to the people that are working so hard to get out the vote and voting. I asked Karen Malum, who kept sending me these great articles about Georgia, to give us a summary, a little update. And I know all of us have updates, and many, many of us have been working in various ways. So updates on Georgia have been something that we've all wanted to talk about for weeks now, and today's the day. And in addition to Karen helping us understand what's happening, Faisal Khan has been on the ground there for several weeks registering voters. So I asked him to join us. So he's going to hop on, and I'm not sure when, but if I don't notice when he hops on, can someone just say Faisal's here? He may only have a short time since he might be kind of distracted. Also, I'm hoping that we can talk about everything else that's going on. Of course, it's all connected, and have time for announcements so that we can connect each other to things that various ones of us may know about. So I think I want to turn this over to Karen now so that we start with the election in Georgia. Is that okay with everyone? Because that seems to be the first thing on all of our minds. So Karen Malum, take it away.
Okay. I've particularly been following the voter suppression activity in Georgia. Many of you know of Greg Palast, an investigative reporter, and he's had a number of really interesting articles and done some incredible work where they researched all of the detail beginning in October of 2019. Brad Raffensperger purged 313,243 people from the voter registration rolls. He claimed they'd moved out of the area. They moved from their so-called registration address, and that is grounds for removal from the rolls under the National Voter Registration Act. Palast wondered about that and did the hard work of learning and particularly hiring some really good experts on voter registration. They found that of that roughly 300,000 people, almost 200,000 had not moved at all and were therefore illegally purged from the lists. And just as a point of reference, I would remind you that Biden won by 12,000 votes. So a couple 100,000 votes is a big deal. Apparently, Georgia did not follow the requirements of the National Voter Registration Act. It doesn't allow you to make changes within certain timeframes, and I believe it's within 90 days of a election. It also requires you to use very specifically licensed organizations to check the the postal service. That is the standard. It's the standard of someone having moved is if they have filled out a change of address card with the postal service. And Georgia didn't contract with a licensed contractor. And then, by the way, yesterday or so, it came out that the Georgia head of the election efforts, the equivalent to our state board of elections, told the court that he had used a particular licensed contractor, and Palast followed up on that, and they had not used that guy. So,
Karen, I'm going to interrupt you just for a minute because Faisal has joined us, and he might only have a few minutes. So I'm going to. Hey, Faisal. Hi.
Hi, Karen. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon from Savannah, Georgia. How's everybody doing?
Hi. Good.
Can you hear me well?
Yes. I know you don't have long, so I thought I would just go right to you. Karen's bringing us up to date on some of the details, but how does it look down there on the ground?
Well, today it's been interesting. You know, I've been here for almost over 4 hours, and it's been pretty slow and very quiet. I think one of the reasons is that a lot of people have voted early. About over 3 million people have voted early in the early election. And obviously, also over 80,000 people registered after the general election, which is really encouraging. The other thing is that I was just talking to somebody from the polling station. Is that he said that vast majority of the times, people that vote in general election, they do not come and vote in runoff. You know, now statistically, Republicans seems to have a more majority of coming and voting on the election day. So it's just been very calm and quiet day. We have a CNN right over there on the right. There was Swedish TV. I got interviewed by a Swedish TV. I got interviewed by Italian TV. So also they were about an hour ago, I checked, and from the manager there at the polling station, out of 50 people, 20 people were able to vote, but 30 people were told to go to their precinct. So here's the difference here. During the early election, you could vote in any of your locations in your county. But on the election day today, you're only allowed to vote in your own precinct. So about 30 people came here earlier today thinking that they can vote here, but they were told that they have to go to the precinct to vote. So there's still a lot of misinformation. There's still a lot of lack of knowledge. And you know, it's an early election, for example, in 8 counties, including Fulton County. The early election ended on the 30th. Here in Chatham County, where I'm at, or Bullock County, or Liberty County or in Glenn County, the early voting ended on the 31st. So there's a lot of discrepancy here. Like this precinct on Thursday it closed at 4 o'clock, and there were about 70 people here in line to vote. So and about 35, 40-minute time to get in. Now at the other locations like Eisenhower location, the precincts were closing at 5 o'clock. So, there's a lot of information. That's why people can easily get confused. But today, relatively speaking, it was cool in the morning. It's nice. It's about an early 60s. It's high, early 60s. It's sunny. It's very quiet right now. It's slow. It's been a little bit surprising. The turnout has been slow as far as I'm concerned. It's about 11:45 now, and it's slow.
Wow. So you've been there. You've been there a long time, right? You came home, but then you went back. And
That's right.
What are you, can you sort of summarize for us a little bit about what your impression is of voter suppression in Georgia right now? I've been hearing from other people on the ground that some people have been even more hostile to the attempts to get out the vote.
Yeah, my experience is I was here in November for early voting registration for about eight days. Came back to North Carolina about a week, less than a week actually, and then I came here. So this is my third week here now for the runoff election. So the number of things, but as far as the state-sponsored suppression goes, this is how I look at it. My experience. Last week I was in Glenn County with a colleague. Went to the courthouse where there was a hearing by the Board of Elections because one of the Republicans, Mr. Jones, who lost the election, still, of course, in the office, was challenging 260 ballots, 260 votes. And the reason is that there was a change of address. But in the law is that even if you have a change of address, as long as you're in the same county, as long as you have the domicile from the same county, that's okay to change your address. So I spoke in that courthouse. Some other people spoke. Black Voter Matters also spoke. And there was a 2-1 vote, and the Board of Election threw out his case. So that there's a lot of in rural communities, and this is Brunswick, Glenn County, where Ahmaud Arbery was killed, some time ago. So that's one form of suppression. The other form of suppression of votes is basically that you see like about 7 to 8 counties in Georgia, their early voting ends on the 30th, and then other counties are early voting is ending at 31st. So there's a lot of confusion, right? And the timing, some precincts are closing at 4 o'clock, some are closing at 5 o'clock. One of the things what happened last week, and one of the Liberty location is that there was a bomb scare. Somebody had called. They had to evacuate the polling station. They had to bring K-9, and people had to leave. Some of the people had to go to the Eisenhower location. Some didn't. So when I was at the Eisenhower location until 7 o'clock, it was relatively, the lines were long, and they were very patient. So as far as the polling station is concerned, as far as these areas, it's pretty progressive. I would say very democratic as well. They're very helpful. They're very cooperative. They're very nice. In rural communities, there's a different story altogether. I was in Camden County, which is very close to the border of Florida. They did a motorcade watch, John Lewis motorcade. Drove around 3 towns in about 30 to 40 cars. We arrived at the courthouse, Camden County Courthouse, and people came out and spoke. There was an actress also who was born there from Hollywood, came and spoke there. So, but as far as voter suppression is concerned, there's that, voter intimidation in some areas. Now, when I was doing registration in some areas, for example, I was in Liberty County, where basically where Hinesville is, Fort Stewart. Some of the people that, we basically were just asking people to register. It was all nonpartisan. There was nothing about Democrats or Republicans. But some of the people who seemingly were Republicans were questioning us and say, are you doing voter fraud? Where are you from? What organization you represent? And I would show them the form and say, I'm not doing any fraud. Show me where's the fraud. This is completely neutral, bipartisan, nonpartisan, actually. Not bipartisan, nonpartisan. We just want people to register. People that are citizens are able to vote should register and vote. So another form of voter intimidation is the people that have been incarcerated. They paid their price. They paid their time. They did their time. They should be given a chance. But because they have a felony record, they cannot vote, which I find that to be very problematic. There are a lot of people that I spoke, a lot of the volunteers have spoken who have a felony record, but because of the law, if you have a felony record, they're not able to vote, which I think is a really serious violation of their civil rights, constitutional rights. But the rural communities, yesterday, I want to end here, went to Statesboro out in rural communities. You see a lot of Trump flags, places and stuff. I mean, everybody's been, to me, relatively nice, as long as you're kind of discreet and not showing, you're here for election and stuff. I think automatically they think that you're committing some kind of fraud. It was interesting that Swedish TV asked me the same question. So there's been a lot of this narrative floating around that people that are volunteering here are somehow part of a scheme, a conspiracy, which is not true.
Thank you, Faisal. And people are wondering where you are, and can you have time to take a few questions?
Yes, I have time to take questions. So right now, I'm at the Savannah Civic Center. Behind me, you see the Civic Center. That's where the voting location is. The absentee ballot drop-off box is on the other side. And Savannah is a beautiful city, beautiful town, a lot of history. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad history as well. And I'm happy to take any questions. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Questions?
I've got one. It's Maple. Hey, Faisal.
Hey, Maple.
Hey, I heard that there'd be long lines and they're not allowing people to give water and stuff like that. I heard that like yesterday. So that might apply to today too, as there's less places that they can go to vote if there are long lines. What about that? Like, helping people answer questions, give them water or food. If they're standing there for hours and hours because of suppression, right? That could be an issue. Thanks.
Right. So from my observation experience, in the early voting, there were long lines, for example. I mean, at times there were like 60, 70 people. There are groups, as long as they're about 150 feet away. Okay. There's a food truck right there right now. I can turn around. You can see it behind me. There's a food truck. If I walk a little bit, you'll see it. Behind me, you'll see a food truck. It's a CNN crew. And then behind the CNN crew is a green food truck. So there's been a couple of groups who were giving out free donuts and coffee. And then there was another group that had a little gazebo set up with water and snacks for the voters. So that's not a problem. What happened is that there was a law passed apparently Wednesday night last week, basically saying that, if you're setting a food, that's okay, as long as it's for everybody. And what happened, one of the groups here, that one of the volunteers end up saying to the people that are in charge of the polling that they were here to give food to the voters. So, for some reason, which is really strange, by default, they thought that you cannot do that. This has to be for everybody. So they were told to leave. But the other group was able to set up the gazebo about, just another, about, I would say, 200 yards. And they were giving out water and snacks and venue inside. And there's a food truck there giving free tacos, chicken and beef tacos. Really good, actually, really tasty and delicious.
You're making me hungry.
Yeah, I'm getting hungry too. Yeah. and so it's a free, So I just went inside and I said, you guys are hungry, you should go get free tacos. So they've been very friendly. I've been very chatty, as I usually am. And it's completely non-political conversations, And as far as I've seen, in terms of the water or somebody giving out food distribution, I don't think that's been a problem. Now, it could be a case in some rural communities areas.
Yes.
In small towns, that could definitely be the case. But again, I'm in Savannah, which is, it's like a mixture of Raleigh and Chapel Hill,
Yeah, it's pretty different in the rural communities. You and I both experienced that.
Yes, yeah. Very different. It's a very different ballgame. And you see a very different type of crowd. And again, at the precincts too, you will see a very different atmosphere, But here, in all the precinct locations that I've been to, people have been very friendly, very cooperative, very helpful, and they want you to vote. They want, to make sure you have proper documentation, everything, and they really were here to help you to vote. But in rural communities, there's a different story. Yes, it could be a different story.
Thank you. Other questions for Faisal?
I have a question. Faisal, where have you been staying?
Who's this?
This
Scarlett.
Is Scarlett.
Hi, Scarlett.
And I'm originally from Georgia. So where have you been staying as you've traveled around the state?
Well, I've been basically stationed in Savannah for one reason, is that when I got my hotel room, I sanitized it twice, and I don't allow anybody, even housekeeper, to come in. I change my own towels and trash. It has a little kitchenette because I just wanted to be very extra cautious and careful. But I've been traveling different areas, so I've been able to, I'm in Chatham County, but I've been able to go. I've been able to travel to Liberty County, to Bullock County, to Glenn County, and to Camden County. Yesterday I was in Statesboro. It's about an hour, 20-minute drive. And now our group was considering asking me if I could go to Augusta or Valdosta and other places, and get a hotel. Because of COVID, and I'm taking extra precautionary measures, I declined. I said, I'm willing to go down there for one day and come back, but I prefer not to take a hotel because then I have to clean it and I have to leave this room, I have to get another room, and I don't want to go through that kind of a very short transition. But I'm mainly stationed here in Savannah, but I have been traveling around those counties, about hour, 2 hour. So Camden County is about 2 hour drive. That's the farthest I've been.
So, and how have you funded this time in Georgia?
How's what? I'm sorry, say that again, please.
How has this been funded or paid for, or what group are you
So I came with I came from this group called Bull City Votes. They sponsored this. They got a lot of funding. People have donated generously. And a lot of people like myself did some presentations and bios and video presentations so people saw we were actually doing what we were doing on ground. And I think that really encouraged people to make donations. I'm not getting paid for that except only my hotel. So, I lost my project in July, and this is really solely completely voluntary right now. So, it's just people donating to Bull City Votes. And there are other organizations and groups that are also willing to pay people and sponsor people. But myself and other people, a group of people that came from Triangle area, Durham, Raleigh, as far as I know, it's the Bull City Votes group that started the fundraising, and people have been donating and giving to us. So they're taking care of hotels, they're paying for our food allowance. So that's really helps a lot.
Well, this is again, Scarlett. My brother and sister-in-law live in Richmond Hill, which is the little south of Savannah. Did you get to that area? Oh, great.
Yeah, I've been there twice. I was there yesterday. I was there for the ballot curing in Richmond Hills. So I went there yesterday. Yep. I've been there twice.
All right. Well, thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a collective effort. It's been so encouraging to see people from all over the country. I've seen people from California, from Oregon. Last week I met a gentleman who was doing, he was a poll watcher from Oregon, and people from Detroit and New Jersey, and of course North Carolina and other parts. And people in Georgia are like surprised. They said they've never seen this kind of energy. So I'm telling them, well, Georgia has almost become a country within a country now, and this has become so important. And so I was talking to a young lady here who's from Savannah. I said, this is a good thing for Georgia. It's about time to get that kind of attention, given the history that this state has. So this is a lot of positive progressive movement, a lot of groups, and Kamala Harris was here a few days ago in Garden City. Reverend Warnock was here on Sunday. So we went to his little event at the library on Montgomery Street. Not on Montgomery Street, I'm sorry, on Bull Street. So, this place was really packed. The only thing I would say that has been sad to me, Georgia is one of the 7 states that doesn't have any kind of mandate or requirement to wear a mask. So I saw a lot of people not wearing masks. I'm not eating at restaurants for that reason, because they have absolutely no social distancing except few restaurants. But majority of the restaurants have just been packed. So it's really kind of in the holiday season, people were here. Restaurants were packed just like normal times. So that's been a bit of inconvenience, because obviously when you're traveling, you're not able, you want to eat out and you can't eat out. So just been, buying food and groceries and preparing it at home at the hotel room. But other than that, things been really nice. Savannah is beautiful. Like I said, I've been walking a lot and studying history and culture. Actually, whenever I get time, early in the morning or late night, I do my walks. Daytime, I'm usually traveling or doing work related to election. But it's been really great. And, everybody I've come across, I'll be very honest with you. I don't know what their political philosophy is or not. Everybody's been very polite and nice, and I've been enjoying having striking conversations and in some restaurants, at convenience stores, and some gift shops, even at gas stations. I like to have conversations. So everybody's been really nice. Of course, it's a beautiful state, and it's a very interesting history and string dynamics. The political component is obviously very polarized, very fractured. Sad to say that.
Faisal, I think I speak on behalf of everyone saying thank you for everything you're doing and have done for weeks. Thank you for everything that you've done for years in this part of North Carolina. We love you. And thank you for hopping on the phone to join us today. You're a good friend of Tuesdays with Tillis, that's for sure.
No, thank you, Karen. Thank you so much for your kind words. I am honored and privileged to do this. And this is for our children, our grandchildren. because I think to me it's really important to understand that democracy is a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's just not voting. We have to be engaged at every level politically. We have to hold our elected officials accountable, irrespective of what party they're from. Be engaged in our communities, speak out on issues, especially with people that their rights are being violated. To me, it's really important. So it's been an honor and privilege, really, to be here. But it's also, I want to, say this is a collective effort of so many people, and my respect goes out to Tuesday Tillis, to you, and to everybody else who's part of Tuesday Tillis. Has been a big part of my life for the last 4 years, and Tuesday Tillis has done some amazing work consistently. So a lot of respect goes out to you all guys who have been organizing it week to week, in and out, and doing amazing work, and having a very profound impact in the community. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to a positive outcome today. I'm very hopeful, but I will not say anything, but I'm very hopeful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Feel free to stay with us, but I know you have stuff that you're doing.
I have to go and talk to a few people.
Okay.
And may have to go to another precinct. But thank you very much. I hope everybody's doing well and safe. And a Happy New Year to you, everybody, and to your families. And hopefully see you, Karen, soon, and Scarlett, and everybody else who's watching it. Thank you very much. Love you all.
Stay safe, Faisal. Love you. Thank you.
Love you too. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, that's so great. Okay. So that's just so great to see him there. Karen, hi, I'm coming back to you. I got a little lost in the details before, but it sounds to me like you were supporting what Stacey Abrams was telling us last night about how Raffensperger and Kemp are no heroes, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Basically, they disenfranchised some 300,000 people after Palast's investigative work came out. His work found that there was a 63% error rate between the number of people who had Raffensperger had claimed had moved and actually potentially had moved. That's a fairly high error rate given the importance of people being allowed to vote.
So you're telling us a story of long-term voter suppression by the state of Georgia.
Yes, part of what Faisal said also, there was a lawsuit filed with regard to this data. The ACLU got very interested when Palast released his investigative results and double-checked the work and endorsed it and said it was absolutely right, and that led to a lawsuit being filed in December. And the judge did not issue the injunction that was requested, but he did say there clearly were major errors, and that the head of the election office representing Georgia and the plaintiffs to the lawsuit should meet and iron this out, and they have not been able to get him to meet. And this morning I saw a video, 9-minute video by Palast and crew showing the group of plaintiffs going to the election board's office. They had called the guy, he wouldn't respond, he wouldn't give them a date, this and that. The court was saying he had to, so they said, well, we're coming on X day. And when they got there with Palast and his TV crew, the office was locked and the lights were off, but the Black Voters Matter plaintiff said, well, let's go to this other office they use, and caught the guy there and talked with him, and he was unwilling to say that he would reinstate the people, and definitely not willing to say that he would reinstate the people in time for today's vote. Subsequently, and I'm sure many of you heard about this, there was a lawsuit filed on 12/28 in the U.S. District Court as Faisal was talking, he mentioned that he went to one courthouse where a local person had challenged votes, and they were challenging the very same votes that Raffensperger had claimed, he had proven had not voted. And of course, the investigation showed that they had not followed the appropriate requirements of the National Voting Rights Act. And that happened in a number of Georgia locales, and in 2 counties, there was an individual, and this happened in 2016 in Chatham County, North Carolina. At that time, that's where I live, and at that time, we had a Republican chair of the county board of supervisors, and they would allow individuals to make claims against other voters, and rather than the standard being, well, you're innocent until proven guilty, they would say, okay, these people have challenged you, so we're accepting what they said unless you prove otherwise. Well, that happened in two other counties, in rural counties in Georgia, and suit was brought, and the district court judge said, absolutely not, they couldn't throw them out. They didn't have enough evidence. They had no direct evidence. And of course, it turned out that one of the 2 people making those charges was the head of the local Republican Party. So at least in 2 rural counties, they were thrown out. And there's some noise being made about that because it happens that the district court judge happens to be Stacey Abrams' sister. But that really doesn't change the law or the ruling of the court. And the other thing Faisal, I think, alluded to is one of the real issues is between the election time and this election. They've changed a lot of the voting locations, and particularly as Texas did, they closed a lot of them in Black neighborhoods. So you could be in a neighborhood with millions of other people, and there's only one place to go vote. So I think it's pretty clear that the establishment is doing everything, and specifically the Republican establishment is doing everything in their power to make it very, very difficult, particularly for young people, for people of color, for poor people, and to some extent for the elderly and disabled, since they have more trouble getting to the voting places, and then to be told, oh, you can't vote here, you have to go somewhere else, can be a real problem. So that's pretty much what I have.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Karen. I really, really appreciate it. See, it seems like we're looking at this picture of just massive voter suppression. It's kind of a miracle of organizing by Stacey Abrams and so many other people. And that, boy, we're just going to have to keep digging in because it's only going to get worse.
She was on the Colbert Show last night. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure she was great.
She was on Rachel, too, last night. And she was wonderful. She just gets to the heart of everything. I'm sure that clip is available for people to watch.
Yes.
So let's open it up now and spend a little longer on Georgia before we turn to other things. Comments and questions. Yeah, Darlene.
I have a question for Karen. I'm seeing this on Twitter, and I don't know how true it is, but that there's problems with the Postal Service in Georgia getting absentee ballots. And have you heard about that? I
haven't heard that, but of course, that would be so.
I've heard it anecdotally, people not even getting their ballots and getting them late on Facebook. Yeah, Susan.
Yes, well, I did a little bit of the phone banking for ballot cures on Sunday, and I hadn't done that before, but honestly, what it takes to cure a ballot, it was just mind-boggling to me. And I'm like, right. Just the affidavits and the signatures and this sign here and this line and not that line, and this is another dimension of the voter suppression. And I don't know if that Roethlisberger is responsible for instituting all that, or that predates him, or just just that
Yes.
issue of the voting in itself just seemed overwhelming to me.
It shouldn't be that hard.
It should not be that hard.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I was just, I was just wondering if the fact that Faisal saw that there were not a lot of people showing up this morning, it was relatively calm. Could we interpret that as a good sign, since everybody's been saying that Republicans are going to vote today like crazy? I don't know if anyone had an opinion about that.
I have an opinion on that, which is
Good.
He's, of course, as he pointed out, he's in a place not so dissimilar from Raleigh and Chapel Hill. I think when we talk about the rural areas and some of the Stone Mountain, some of those areas around Atlanta, that's where those Republicans are sitting. So, you know, it's going to be TV to find out, like, are there lines in Stone Mountain?
I'd like to call on Eloise and then Jeff.
Good morning and Happy New Year. This is Eloise. It was afternoon now. In her interview with Rachel Maddow last night, Stacey Abrams spoke. It was the only time that I had heard anyone on television speaking about the level of voter suppression that Raffensperger and Kemp have been responsible for. And she just basically said that, and I'm not using her word, that they were the most egregious in the United States. So I hadn't really focused on their past as we were listening to the intimidating call from President from President Trump to Raffensperger the other day, which was all over the news yesterday. Yeah, so it focuses me more on the fact that voter suppression, there is a history of it throughout the United States, but right now it's focused in Georgia and has been for many years. And Stacey has been working her group has been working for about 10 years just to get to this point. So the work must continue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things that Karen was detailing is some of what's happening with that voter suppression. Jeff.
Yeah, actually, Randa sort of brought up the point that I was going to make. And I wish we had I was going to ask, I wish you had some idea what the lines are like in those rural areas and how many people are voting out there. That's, you know, the point has always been that the Republicans come out on the day of election, and it would be nice to know in those areas what the vote looks like. But I don't know how to get to that.
Yeah, we'll be finding out as the day goes on, I think. Yeah. How do you think all of this talk about voter fraud is going to impact voter suppression?
Yeah, I have a comment about that. I am contrarian about Trump's phone call. I think it was extremely calculated and planned to encourage voters from his areas to go out and vote, because it did exactly what he wanted it to do, was have everybody pile on him and incite them to feel like, oh, we've got to go and defend him. So I'm afraid that our glee about him perhaps implicating himself is something we already knew anyway, and it probably doesn't have any legal feet, but I am concerned that it encouraged his voters to go out and vote today.
Thank you, Diane. Andy, you had your hand up. Andy?
I was going to say more or less the same thing that Diane just said, which is, I think that, I think there's going to be sort of two sides to this coin, which is, I think, Trump has done so much to sort of discourage people to go vote in this primary, not primary, but in this runoff, but also at the same time has got his, all his people revved up, so they might show up in droves. I think it's really hard to be able to figure out which is going to win out in this until we see what happens later tonight.
Thank you. Thank you both.
And the other piece about Raffensperger, Stacey made a very clear point about this yesterday, is that they're defending the system they put in place.
Right.
So it isn't that they're trying to protect voters. It's they're protecting their own reputations at this point. And Trump has just muddied the waters for them. And so it's hard for their message to get through. But I did drop a couple of podcasts in the chat that I think are helpful, because I know a few weeks ago, we were all talking about, well, how do we do in North Carolina what's been done in Georgia? And, isn't a direct match of what they did there, except for the piece that I think all groups that are concerned about this need to look at the 800,000 people in North Carolina that are unregistered. And many of those are people of color, and many of those are in rural areas as opposed to the urban areas, which has been more of the focus of our political get out the vote strategy. So there are some things that could be similar. And, we just have to look at groups that don't look like this group to be empowered in their own communities. That's the real difference in Georgia, is that the groups that are being successful, the groups that have come out of the communities from where they are. They're not vote harvesting groups, they're vote empowering groups. And we'll see if that organically develops in North Carolina in these next few years.
And Diane, for all of us who want to see that happen, can I just push you a little on which organizations should we support? What should we be doing?
I wish I had that crystal ball. The reason I put these podcasts in is because I think they're helpful in understanding how authentic voices sound and where they're from and what they do.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that people who care about other communities are not authentic, but we do have this tendency of feeling like, well, we'll just go there and do it there. And it doesn't come from there. The history of North Carolina and the history of Georgia are not exactly the same. There are a lot of things that are the same, but there are things that are very different. And it was helpful to me listening to these podcasts and hearing those contrasts to see, well, what things do we take and what things do we leave? And there's not a wholesale adoption of what they did to what has to happen here. But to your point, for example, it seems like when you have a candidate like Raphael Warnock, he has behind him a huge historical Black church movement.
Yeah.
That is rooted in the civil rights movement that grew literally at Ebenezer Baptist Church, along with other places. That story is not identical in North Carolina. And if it was there, it's not there now.
Yeah.
So what is the thing that is going to lift not just a candidate, but a movement like that?
Yeah.
That's just one example that struck me. But these groups in the communities, the one that's in Savannah is called, I think, Stand Up for Georgia. We heard Stacy talk about all the groups that her resources that she's gathered have been fueling. But I think I said this before. She had a motivation, and she says it. I wanted to be governor, and I wasn't going to be able to be governor unless I could change the people who were voting. And therefore, she set out on that and brought a lot of people in who saw, we can't have change here unless we change who votes. So that's the tilling of the field that has to happen in North Carolina.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. And maybe she'll still be governor in 2 years. Yeah, Karen.
I was just going to say that WUNC is carrying tonight, and I think all of NPR is, a special out of the PBS station in Atlanta on the elections and the results. So that might be a useful resource. I think it starts at 8 o'clock tonight on WUNC.
Okay. Thank you. Good. Wow. Thank you. Thank you all so much. So on this subject or any other subject, we have some time left. Yeah, Andy.
So before I have to actually duck off in a minute, but can we talk about the Senate and the House traitors who are trying to object to the vote tomorrow?
The Sedition Caucus, yes.
Yeah, the Sedition Caucus.
Yeah.
I think that this has just gone madness now. It's just ridiculous to the point where that we have people who are literally trying to commit a crime for which they should be punished by death according to the Constitution. I mean, like, I don't even know how to respond to it at this point.
Yeah. But thank you. We got to talk about that. Do you want to talk about this or something else? He's muted. Okay. Yeah. So, and Tillis and Burr have not released statements.
As Burr has.
Yeah, it's not much of one.
Okay, right.
Right. I mean, if you're going to choose between the people who are, you have his statement there, Cecil?
Beg pardon?
Do you have his statement in front of you by any chance?
No, I do not. But there is a good editorial in the paper today, in regards to Tom Tillis, putting him on the spot.
Good. I think putting them on the spot is a really good idea. And they're kind of answering their phones a little more. I've gotten someone at Burr's office, which is very unusual. What neither of them are doing is releasing statements along the line of Mitt Romney.
Right.
Which paper was the article in?
News Observer.
Thank you.
It's editorial by the editorial board, putting pressure on Tom Tillis to do what is right.
Yes. Yeah, I really do think this is the time to be calling and emailing both senators. Just speak up if you want to speak about this subject.
When I said I spoke to Senator Burr's office yesterday, and that's exactly what I told them. That I told them that the president should resign, that it was treasonous behavior, and that his constituents needed to hear from him.
Thank you.
And of course, we'll pass it on to the senator.
Right.
This is Maple, and Burr was just like Loeffler, that evil, stock before the virus, and he's never really caught enough hell for that. I think that's still in limbo a little bit. We can have a high bar and say he shouldn't even be sitting in the Senate, and go from there and attack him on that and a lot of other things. So, because we want to get rid of him next.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Karen?
Yes, Dewey, go ahead.
I called 4 of them the other day, and I know Virginia Fox recognized her voice on the voicemail, left her a note. Remembers me too. I called Holden's office. His people answered. Lightful, that was their first day. I told them we were pushing this. Left a message at Tillis' office and Burr. And on that question about voter participation in the line, for what it's worth, the general election here in the rural area of Franklin County was long on election day with field. It was very typical Republican filling the place up on election day. So that looked at Georgia.
Dewey, say again what you just said at the end about election day.
Election day, voting. Election day in Franklin County was loaded with Republicans.
Okay.
In this rural area. So if the rural area in Georgia looks like it does in town there, we're in good shape.
Well, election day in Orange County was also Republican. On election day, Trump won in Orange County even.
Well, they had a sweep in Franklin County too.
Thank you.
So back to the sedition caucus, to Stephanie, and CNN just put out a push saying Trump is now pressuring Pence even more to not accept the vote.
Right.
To turn down the vote.
Right. Thank you, Ellen, and then Michael. Oh, whoops. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to put your hand down and I muted you, Ellen. Unmute.
Okay. What I put in the chat was something to ResistBot, and they will send a note to congressional representatives to say, we don't believe in seating the 126 seditious members. But I made a mistake. You don't text, you text the word sedition to 50409, and they immediately get back to you and they send it on your behalf. So that's really nice. And one other thing, I just read on Twitter this morning that rumor has it that Scotland has been notified that to expect a plane from DC, like one of the, vice presidential planes or whatever, the day before the inauguration. So people are speculating that Trump is going to abscond from the country and run to Scotland.
My husband thinks he's going to Russia.
Russia has no more use for him because he's already wrecked the country and he owes them money. Michael.
Wait, let him set up a really nice place in Siberia for Trump.
Scotland has
Scotland has the best golf course, right? The golfing started in Scotland.
Scotland has also said that they will not take anybody who's not essential, and golfing is not essential.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we'll
if
see.
meat production is essential, then golfing maybe.
Yeah, right.
Michael Eisenberg, go right ahead.
Scotland just put out today that they don't want anybody coming in from the United States, including him. Anyhow, I posted in the chat the Tillis editorial from the Internote. And I also wanted to go back to Georgia for 1 second. I said this in the chat also. Brad Raffensperger for future elections wants to get rid of no excuse absentee ballots. They were too successful, so he wants to eliminate that.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Yeah, and it'll only be a matter of time before they try to do that in North Carolina. Yes, Sandy.
I was just going to say we haven't talked, or I don't remember us talking about Julian Assange or Edward Snowden.
Good.
Although we have talked about what's her name, Jackie's I forget her name.
Reality winner.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's very disturbing what they do to people that leak horrendous information that our government is doing in our name.
Although it was good news about Julian Assange that they're not going to extradite him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a broken man.
Democracy
doesn't sound good.
Democracy Now! Last night had a really good story about Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. So if anyone wants to listen to that, it was a good 20-minute story.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
I have a question, and it's just, who is this new lieutenant governor? And what in North Carolina?
He's different.
I mean, what is he planning on, it just sounds like a wild card.
He's a very strong promoter of guns. He wants everyone to have a gun.
I knew that.
I have not been paying attention. Any other things about him?
He's from Greensboro, and he made a name for himself by going to the city council of Greensboro and just, as I said, promoting the issue of guns. And beyond that, I do not know anything about it.
Okay.
He's anti-LGBTQ. He's anti-Semitic. He's a conspiracy theorist.
Really?
And it's unfortunate. I have a friend a black friend who told me when we were talking about this before the election, he said that black men don't like to vote for black women. And unfortunately, that's what his thinking was, why Yvonne Hawley did not win the election.
Okay.
Not going to be a lot of help to Governor Cooper then.
No, that's right.
We crave Governor Cooper's help.
Yeah.
Dan Forrest wasn't a big help to Governor Cooper either.
Right.
I think one thing that we should just mention is Trump's call of his white supremacist terrorist friends to come to DC tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I know at least some people from the Triangle are going there to counter protest. I'm very worried about them. And I'm worried about the people of Washington, D.C. And I'm worried about what this means, that he's calling his own little private army in tomorrow. And I'm really worried about the 10 former defense secretaries that felt worried not to write this editorial in the New York, Washington Post yesterday.
Who would have thought that Cheney would have been the one to start it?
Right. That's right. Right.
But look at Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney is actually standing up.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I think that they see they've unleashed something that is extremely dangerous, and they don't want to be associated with that. I mean, they have a history of their own that they seem to be willing to accept, but I don't think the Civil War is part of their legacy.
Right. Al and Olinda, hello,
Yes.
Speak up.
I just heard you talking about Burr and Tillis. We have, the NAACP has an outstanding ethics complaint against Burr for, making money off of the COVID is inside information. That complaint is sitting in the Senate Ethics Committee, which of course is now controlled by, it's a 5-person committee. Jean Shaheen from New Hampshire, a really fine senator, is on the committee. And she will be chair if we win in Atlanta today. That's number one. So that will, Burr will have to resign when they find him. Jean will take over the committee, within the next 2 or 3 weeks, as soon if they have the Democratic majority. So Burr is out of there, and we need to keep pressure on that committee. I can post if you want. I can post the.
It was just announced. It's just announced that Senator Grassley, will be the one presiding tomorrow instead of.
Is that right? Yeah.
If the tweet can be believed. I just saw a tweet saying he'll preside and Pence will not.
Anyway,
Wait, Michael, wait a minute.
You're talking about two different things.
Right, yeah. Michael, just wait a minute, because Al is talking about something different.
Anyway, I'm saying Burr's days are numbered. They'll probably let him resign. Tillis, we also have a complaint against Tillis that we have not pushed real hard. Once the election was going, but that complaint takes on a whole new strength, and we should be able to bring him out. He violated, he had he lied on all of his records that he put in to the Senate where he was getting his money from. In other words, they had a front group set up when he was running for, against our guy down here, Cunningham.
So thank God for civil rights lawyers. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Al.
They all, everything got hung up by the COVID and the fact that we couldn't, people would say, well, I'm sorry, we're not working. The ethics committee just stopped working.
Well, you just raised the stakes for the Georgia election. Thank you, Al. And Dewey, go ahead.
Al, lay low on Burr and Tillis till after the 20th, or Trump will pardon them.
Yeah, I know that's a good idea.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep patient.
Thank you. Thank you. And then Michael Flaherty, you were saying that it just came out that Grassley is going to preside instead of Pence. So that's up to the minute reporting. Thank you.
Yeah, 2 points back to our concerns about DC tomorrow. I thought it was incredibly good timing that the leader of the Proud Boys was arrested just before the day that they're supposed to come in potentially armed illegally. And it seems as though the warnings that have come out from both the DC police and the National Guard are pretty stern. And I hope they uphold some peace in the streets tomorrow. I just saw a news thing that said that Grassley was supposed to do the thing tomorrow and that Pence is backing out. And earlier they said, no, Pence will be there. So there's a lot of confusion over that too.
No, never underestimate Muriel Bowser. She's as strong as any black woman I've ever met, except for one sitting next to me.
That's right. The one sitting next to you is pretty formidable. Okay, you guys, I think it's 12:31. So I actually think I want to go directly to Scarlett's closing. And then people who want to stay on, talk for a while, it's just fine if you want to do that. I believe the truth will win. I think we're going to skip the closing song. There's a video of Granny singing, and we'll do that after Scarlett does the closing because I want to honor the time. Scarlett, take it away.
All right. At one point today, there were 79 of us on this meeting. I so enjoyed Jade's letter highlighting Stacey Abrams. It was wonderful. And as most of you know by now, I'm originally from Georgia. And with a name like Scarlett, oh, that's a difficult name to live with when you're from the state. And I've heard all the jokes. Sunday on Meet the Press, Stacey Abrams talked about visiting many of the 159 counties in Georgia. And she specifically mentioned Upson County. That's my home county. And she talked about how voter registration had increased, especially among people of color. So we know tonight all our attention and our hearts will be there. So with apologies to Hoagie Carmichael and the incomparable Ray Charles, and maybe a little bit like Willie Nelson, just bear with me. Georgia, Georgia, no peace I find, just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind. Other arms reach out to me, other eyes smile tenderly. Still in peaceful dreams I see, the road leads back to you. Oh, Georgia, Georgia, just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind. Forward together.
Not
one step back. Forward together.
Not one
step back. Forward together.
Not
one step back.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Amy, are you on there? Amy?
Yes.
Dottie thought she saw your husband in Georgia today. Was he there?
No, he's here.
Okay.
Say hi to Dottie for us, Dewey. We miss
Here.
her.
Be all your love, her love.
Yes.
I was afraid she was in the witness protection program. Please tell her hello. We miss her.
Yeah, we miss her. We miss her. It's interesting, though, since we've been on Zoom, we've gotten much larger.
Yeah.
Maybe because we can hear each other.
Walt. Look what's happened to Walt. I haven't seen Walt.
Well, I saw Walter recently. He's just had his hands full with his house, but he's okay. He's doing well, actually. I just saw him a couple days ago. He lives in my neighborhood.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for the update.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I'll tell him that you ask about him.
To the Karens who are on the call, I regret that those women who are accusing Black men falsely, as happened at a hotel recently, the iPhone incident between a woman and a 14-year-old teenager, in which she literally assaulted him trying to get her phone, which was apparently she had left it in an Uber.
Right.
I feel badly for those of you who are named Karen, because it now has taken on some negative connotation. And I wondered if you have any feelings or thoughts about that.
You know, thank you for asking that, Eloise. I will tell you that I did for a long time. And then someone reminded me that men named John or Richard have had this for a long time. So then I felt like, okay, this is just things that happen to names.
Yes. Yes. And my husband's name is John. So
right. And I understand that that Trump slipped and called Kelly Loeffler Karen last night. So, you know.
Just wanted to know.
Thank you. It's very kind of you to ask that, Eloise. Thank you. Well, what a good discussion. I love that discussion today.
Yeah, very good.
Karen, one of the pieces of news is about the Proud Boys tomorrow is they've been told they can have no guns at the demonstration.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there a law in Washington, D.C. about guns at demonstrations? Does anybody?
It's not an open carry. It's not open carry.
That's right.
D.C. is no guns. Yeah.
No guns.
No guns.
At demonstrations. You can have a concealed weapon permit, but you cannot have guns at demonstrations or on national park property, which the Lincoln Memorial is.
That's
so
what
between the two.
Okay.
Well, that's what they said before.
Mm-hmm.
It was always a law, but now they've said don't bring them because they've been allowing them to bring them.
Right.
I think that's a difference this time.
Right.
Whether they'll enforce it's another thing.
Mm-hmm. What I read yesterday, if you have it in another state that you can carry, that is not legitimate in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
that's
you have
correct.
to have a permit for D.C.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
I believe there might be a Republican congresswoman threatening to bring a gun tomorrow into the Congress, into the House. So,
Threatened to bring it to her swearing in, but she didn't do it.
Oh,
We can hope there's a real strong sergeant at arms.
I have a question about the DC National Guard. I don't believe they're under the control of Muriel Bowser. I think they're under
not.
They're under the control of the Justice Department, aren't they?
I think so. But definitely they're not under control of Muriel Bowser.
That could be a concern, a big concern tomorrow.
Yes. Yes.
But she still controls the DC police, does she not?
Yes, and they're doing a great job so far from what I see. Yeah.
See, I think I've got things
and then
set, so I'm not going to interrupt the discussion while I talk here. But the Tuesdays with Tillis discussion, I thought I was going to get right back into the meat of the issues, but they're just having some chat. So we're going to end the.
I just saw
somebody ringing a triangle. They're going to. I'm going to end the broadcast here and invite you to tune in again next week at 11:30 for Tuesdays with Tillis here on the. Wait a minute, my triangles. Set out of.
Calculating all of this stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah.
There we go. My triangle is set out of reach. It's Tuesdays with Tillis on the Triangle talk show. See you next week.
Well, don't you think no matter what happens,